Hello, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls of the Bleacher Report or Post Bleacher Report YouTube world. If you're watching back on the playback on my YouTube channel, my name is Rodney. Thank you so much for coming back and watching another Raiders loss recap. I missed you guys. We had a bye week last week, and Sunday rolled around and I just watched football and then I didn't have anything to prep, and it was sad. But it was also not sad because you can't lose on a bye week. You can lose on a regular season week, can't you? And that's what the Raiders did again. They lost. What was the final score of this game? 34-19, something like that? Now, look, we're going to get into the game. We're going to break things down. We're going to talk about Scott Turner, Brock Bowers. I've got a hot take about Patrick Graham. We're going to take a sneak peek at the rest of the schedule to see if there's any more games on the schedule that we can win. And we're going to talk about what happens if we don't win any of those games and the position we're going to be in the draft, the type of player that we're looking for in that draft. I think everyone knows what we're looking for. We made that pretty clear over the last couple weeks. But before I get into all that, you know the drill. If you're new in the chat here, tell me where you're watching. And also, if you're wondering why, yes, I'm a Raider fan, but if you're wondering why I'm wearing an NBA hat, first of all, I'm a Jazz fan. Also, I have a little bit of a cold and it's freezing in here. But Bleacher Report just signed its extension with Warner Media. Not only to, that Warner Media is keeping Inside the NBA going with Chuck and Kenny and Shaq and all them, but Bleacher Report has extended its rights with the NBA, so shout out to Bleacher Report. That's a big deal for this platform for all of us. Repping the Jazz today. Go Jazz. Jazz stink too. Anyway, let's talk about this game really quick. And as I pull up the box score here, I want to talk about something very interesting, right? Do I want to go circle here? No, we'll go landscape. Okay. So 34-19 Raiders lose. What's interesting, and I don't think there's any denying this, right? I think the team looked better than it did the last few weeks. Does that matter? We'll talk about that. But let's dive in here. Total yards, marginal difference there. Passing yards, we were pretty close. Rushing yards, neither team could really run the ball particularly well. Yards per play, kind of the same. First down efficiency, third down, fourth down conversions, total plays. Like, we had more sacks than they did. This was a very even keel game, right? We had a couple more penalties that cost us a drive or two, and the time possession they had the ball more. We couldn't get off the field on third down. That was a problem. And then Gardner throws a pick at the end. I think this box score shows you, right, that we're always in the mix to be competitive for a lot of these football games, which is what Antonio Pierce did last season. I do think the difference is the quarterback play last year was a little more consistent. Bo Hardigree, the interim OC last year, was absolutely better than Luke Getsy was this year. And they were able to win some of these games that maybe we shouldn't have. And it potentially, excuse me, like I said, a little sick, clouded our judgment for how successful AP and maybe a Gardner Minshew would be this year, because I think Gardner Minshew was fine yesterday. He threw that bad pick at the end, but the game was kind of out of reach at that point. I thought he was fine, and I thought Scott Turner was a bit of a bright spot. The problem is you're going up against Tua and Tyreek and Waddle and Achane and Mike McDaniel's calling the plays. It's going to be hard for you to win that game if you don't have a quarterback that's equal to Tua Tagovailoa or a coach that's equal schematically to Mike McDaniel. I don't think Mike McDaniel is the best coach in the world, but schematically, I don't think there's an argument to be made that he isn't leaps better than Antonio Pierce. Okay, let's talk here. And I see a lot of people saying, like, what are we talking about, dude? We're tanking. We're trying not to win games. Why are we reacting to all this? Well, here's the thing. And I'm not going to get into the report because it's I don't know if it's a great report, but there's a report that Mike Vrabel is next in line to take the job, right? If they fire Antonio Pierce. Antonio Pierce can't afford to tank if they're going to be looking at people, Tom Brady in particular, to replace him. So for the people that are saying we're tanking, are you saying that Antonio Pierce is allowing this team to tank? The fix is in. Mark Davis and Brady have told him, hey, you need to lose these games, and then you'll be back next year, and then they're going to fire him? Because all the reports are coming out that, he's not going to come back if we continue to lose games. So are they tanking? in spite of what AP wants to do, that's what I want to see from the people that are saying our team is trying to lose. Because I don't disagree. They don't look good, but I don't think they aren't tanking. I think the team was purposely put in a position to not be great at this point in the season. We'll see if Aiden O'Connell comes back, right? And maybe creates another spark. But as we pull up the player stats again, and we're going to do my first poll here because we're going to talk about Scott Turner. Again, I thought Gardner was good. I really did. And, we couldn't really run the ball, but what else is new? Alexander Madison had one decent run, but Brock Bowers is the thing to talk about here. Okay. Brock Bowers, look at those stats. 13 receptions, 126 yards. He averaged 9.7 a catch. And he had a touchdown. He even had a catch out of the backfield, which is something I thought we were going to do with Luke Getsy. Michael Mayer was back. Maybe that helped. But Brock Bowers, and this is why I was so happy that we drafted him initially, and I might have said this before in the live stream, and if I have, I apologize. But the reason why I was so happy that we drafted him is because I knew one day, I didn't think it'd be this season, but I knew one day Devontae wasn't going to be here, or it wasn't going to be the Devontae that we knew and loved, right? And we were going to need somebody to replace him to be the focal point of the offense. And I had a pretty decent idea that there was going to be a run on quarterbacks and linemen in this draft, and that the best pound-for-pound player in this draft was going to fall right to us, right? And the best player available, like Nandog says, was there. And we took him. And now, when we look for this new franchise quarterback, there isn't going to be a Drake May situation, right? Where he doesn't have a number one to go to, where he's going to just have to learn on the fly and try to figure it out with this ragtag group. No. Whoever we draft this upcoming year or sign a free agency, Shedeur Sanders, Ryan Tannehill, whatever, who cares? Cam Ward, take your pick. They're going to have a bona fide all-pro to pass the ball to on a rookie contract, which gives us now the flexibility to go out and sign a wide receiver like a T. Higgins. So my point with drafting Brock Bowers was you have to find Devontae's replacement to get ready for whoever took over. If it was Aiden O'Connell or now it's going to be Cam Ward or Milroe or Shedeur. And Myers too. Yeah, he's going to be there as well. So that's why I think in my mind I was so excited to draft Brock Bowers. Also, I have him on my Dynasty Sleeper fantasy football team for the rest of my known existence, which is a plus. This offense looked okay. Now let's talk about Scott Turner, the interim OC who took over for Luke Getsy. Now I understand low bar. I understand low bar. However, I want to send this poll out to the ether here, and I want to see what you guys say. And the question is, did the offense improve under Scott Turner? Here's what I liked. And before I answer this question myself, here's what I liked about the offense as a whole. Okay. As you can see, Gardner Minshew threw the ball 43 times. Not a recipe for success for Gardner Minshew in particular. However, what I liked about this, right? Here's what I liked about what Scott did. He said, our best way to move the ball, we are going to try to establish the run, and we are going to try to get the ball to our best playmakers, Trey Tucker, Brock Bowers, Jakobi Meyers, right? Brock Bowers and Trey Tucker and Jakobi Meyers had a little bit of success in this game. Brock Bowers had a lot, right? So we kept doing that. We could not run the football particularly well. So what did he do? He bailed on it. Scott Turner said, all right, we can't run the football today for whatever reason. Offensive line, Zamir White stinks. What doesn't matter. Today, we're not going to be able to run the football. Okay? Sure. We don't have the quarterback to be able to throw it 43 times consistently and win football games, right? But there's a chance that Gardner Minshew can make a play in open space rather than me doing the same thing over and over again, hand the ball to Zamir White and have him get -2 yards per play. So we're just going to pass the ball until the cows come home. Did we win the football game? No. And did it bite us in the butt at the end with the Minshew interception? Yes, but again, the game was out of hand. It was 2 minutes to go, 2-possession game, whatever. I like that Scott Turner and maybe Norv Turner to an extent were like, we're just going to throw this ball. I know, AP, you want to establish it. It's not working. We're just going to let it fly with Gardner, and we'll see what happens. And if we had a better quarterback in position, right? If we had a Tua, and we had to let it fly because the run game wasn't going well, which is what the Dolphins kind of had to do. Dolphins couldn't really run the rock today or yesterday, excuse me. We might be able to win this game. And Nandog says they scored 19 points and the run game is non-existent. I'd say you're trying to change the paint, put on a turret. It's the same result. It didn't improve. It didn't get any worse. Okay, no doubt about it. Okay, I hear you. However, what I will say, to push back just a little bit, is that there were times in the Luke Getsy offense where we weren't even in position to kick field goals. We got down there. We scored in every single quarter. And we scored late in the game, which is what we didn't do with Getsy. With Getsy, we started out hot with the first 15 scripted plays, and then at least with this offense that we saw, again, one game, but this is all I have to go off of, one game with Scott Turner, we saw like progressive development and evolution in the game to adapt, to try to continue to get Brock the ball instead of just doing the same thing over and over and over again. So it was refreshing to at least see a team look the same throughout the whole game offensively, be able to score in every single quarter. Because I understand 19 points, but our personnel is not exactly the Miami Dolphins personnel, right? You have to look at the offensive success in terms of what it was before Scott Turner took over and in terms of what they're putting out on the field, right? Because other than Brock Bowers and Jacoby Myers, it's not exactly great. And I see comments about Patrick Graham as well. The Real-Rated fans, please stand up. AP is fine. He's not the issue. Gardner Minshew was a Band-Aid addition, not real expectations. And the thing about, and get your comments in here about everything, about AP, about Scott Turner, can improve slightly, I see. The thing about AP is I go back and forth as to whether or not he's going to get another year. And maybe we'll see Ritter will win a game or two. Maybe we'll see if they go to Ritter, if they go to Aiden, right? I don't know. But someone said, yeah, Romero says Patrick Graham's time has come. So as I end this poll, nobody says the offense didn't not improve. We're just saying too early to tell. I think it improved slightly, but I also think it's too early to tell, right? So let's talk about Patrick Graham and this defense for a second, because I do think there needs to be a lengthy discussion about PG, Patrick Graham. And Patrick Graham last year in the second half of the season was absolutely electric. We had the number one scoring defense. It's the reason we beat the Kansas City Chiefs. Shout out to the Buffalo Bills, by the way. Hold that, Kansas City. I know I'm not in any position to be celebrating losses when the team has 9 wins. I get it, okay? We have to take our small victories. The defense last year was great. The defense the year before that was not good, and the year before that was also not good. And Patrick Graham, so far, has been a part of mostly bad defenses for the Raiders, or mostly average defenses at best. And yesterday I thought it was We got decent pressure, but we could not get off the field. And the Dolphins had long, sustained drives, which is why we didn't have a lot of points on the board either. They had multiple drives of over 6 minutes. Now, I know some people are going to say we've dealt with a lot of injuries. East Bay Boy says we're undisciplined. We have a coach who's too concerned with being players' friends. Okay, no doubt about it. I know we've dealt with a lot of injuries, and I'm not discrediting that. But as I put this poll to you, I want to talk about something that the broadcast said. And I do think the Raiders' defense has significantly regressed. And we've had a lot of major injuries. Christian Wilkins, Malcolm Kuntz, Marcus Epps, Nate Hobbs didn't play today. Jacorian Bennett, who has been a star this year, didn't play like the second half of this game. It's been a nightmare defensively. Devin Diablo just came back. Okay? However, I do think great coordinators, right, have the ability to lift up a subpar roster when it's needed and when the game is on the line. And when Miami scored their first touchdown to Jonnu Smith on the left side of the end zone, the broadcast team was very critical of the formation and the defensive play call that was in place before the ball was snapped. And I think that's the biggest problem with Patrick Graham. I think he's a great motivator like AP. And I think when he's got all his dogs out there, you're going to see a top 10 defense. But when we deal with a lot of injuries, he panics a little. And he's like, we're just going to play straight man. And Tyreek Hill runs right by you for 40 yards. And it's like, what are we doing? We're going to run man at the goal line. It's like, all right, pick play, touchdown, bang. Third down, game on the line. Get the ball back. We could be like the Ravens game here. Score. Win the game. Jonnu Smith wide open, touchdown. I've just seen, and the broadcast team pointed that multiple times. Schematically, it's not good enough. Even if Christian Wilkins was out there, he might be in the wrong position. Maybe not him, but you know what I mean. He's going to be in the same position no matter what. Marcus Epps, whatever. Schematically, to me, it's not good enough. And for the bulk of his tenure as the Raiders defensive coordinator, it has not been stellar. So while I think he's a great coordinator at times, he's not elite. And the reason why I'm bringing this up is if we bring back Antonio Pierce, which is a possibility, right? Some reports say yes, some reports say no. Do you bring back Patrick Graham? Or do you go new OC, new DC, revamp this whole thing, keep rocking and rolling with AP? I don't know if you can do that. Nandoc says no sense in continuing to keep anybody on the staff. Thank them for their effort and service to the Shield. Christian Wilkins going down hurt the most because no interior help. As for usual, we never had any upfront help, decent edge, and wet tissue in the middle. Yeah, no denying that. Winning teams with winning coaches typically have to shuffle and change their staff every 2 to 3 years. The key word is winning teams. Exactly. So, all that to say, the offense is slightly improved under Scott Turner. The defense has significantly regressed. Nobody thinks it's entirely Patrick Graham's fault in the poll, and I would tend to agree. If we had all our guys out there, we'd be in more of these games, right? But that's the nature of the beast in the NFL. Sometimes people get hurt. Sometimes it's a lot of people that get hurt. Look at the 49ers. They were throwing to Ricky Pearsall and me and you, right? It happens. And they're losing too, right? No, and not a lot of people are blaming Kyle Shanahan. If you're serious about a rebuild, hire Bill Belichick, OC Wes Welker, DC Mike Vrabel. And by the way, I brought up Wes Welker as a DC a couple streams ago. I don't know why that's why you're referencing it. He was the pass game coordinator for the team that we just got beat by, whose pass game looked pretty good. I think there is a very high chance if Mike Vrabel is our head coach next year, which there is a report floating out there that is going to be the case. I don't know if it's true. I'm not reporting that. Wes Welker has probably a decent chance of being the next OC, which is not a problem for me. But here's what I want to talk about as we sort of hit the tail end of this, right? We've got, 8 more games coming up or something like that. What are we, 2 and no? How many more games do we have? Like 6, 7? Well, let's see. We're going to pull up the schedule here. And as I pull up the schedule to look ahead a little bit to the next few games, right? I'm going to close this poll and we're going to end it. And I'm going to bring up the schedule. And we sit at 2 and 8. We're currently 4th for the draft order, right? Here's the schedule. Boom. Okay. Here's our schedule. Comment below and vote in the poll. Ready? Sad poll, but it is what it is. How many more wins do the Raiders have? So after this Dolphins game, it's cut off by the poll here. But we have Denver at home, Kansas City, Tampa Bay, Atlanta, Jacksonville, New Orleans, and Los Angeles. You would have to assume, for the most part, I mean, we played the Chiefs this year, lost by 7, right? You have to assume we're going to play those teams evenly-ish, right? Let's say absolute best case scenario or worst case scenario if you're rooting for us to lose. We win one of the next 3 divisional games. So that's one more win. You play the Jags and the Saints. I think we lose to Tampa Bay. We lose to the Falcons. You play the Jags and the Saints. I think you split those games. I think you have 2 more wins, best case scenario, unless they go to Aiden and he shows a little bit of a spark like he did last year. I don't think that's going to happen. I think we have the Jags game that we could win, and I think we have one divisional game, and that's it, which would get us to 4 wins, which then I would ask you, where does that leave you in the draft order? Do the Jags have another win in them? The Saints won today. That helps us. What about the Titans? The Titans and the Jags have to play each other, I believe, twice. So that's going to help one of the teams win at least one more game. We need to pay attention to the Titans, Jags, and Browns remaining games rather than our own. Browns played the Steelers twice. You see them splitting. There's a lot to discuss here about draft order and blah blah blah. But here's my take on tanking and on losing as many games as possible. History is not kind to people who have the number 1 overall pick who draft a quarterback in the last 5 years. If you go back and you think about this past draft, Caleb Williams 1, Jaden Daniels 2, Drake May 3. Oops, sorry. Drake May 3. Penix was 6. Bo Nix was 5. Who was the 4th quarterback taken? Why can't I think? But anyway, you see my point. Every single quarterback that's played this year, save for Michael Penix because he hasn't played, has looked significantly better than the 1st overall pick. Bring it back 2 years ago. 1st pick, Bryce Young. 2nd pick, CJ Stroud. And then Will Levis. I think an argument can be made that Will Levis has looked better than Bryce Young. And I think and I might be forgetting another quarterback in there. And I think an argument can absolutely be made, the argument, that CJ Stroud was and is the best quarterback in that draft class. And the world may never know who the Houston Texans would have taken 1st overall if they had that pick. And by the way, the Houston Texans won the last game of the season that year to guarantee the Carolina Panthers getting the 1st pick and them falling to 2. If they had won, are we 100% certain that they would have drafted CJ Stroud? I'm sure that's what they'll tell you, but I'm not positive. Go back to that crazy 2018 draft. Baker Mayfield 1, Sam Darnold 2, Josh Allen 3, Josh Rosen 4, Lamar Jackson 5. It's not as simple as losing games. You need to have a GM and a stable front office in place to pick the right guy. And I think Brady being in there is going to help out a lot. Rob Gronkowski said on Up and Adams that Tom Brady is the best talent evaluator he's ever been around. It doesn't seem like this is going to be a Michael Jordan situation with the Charlotte Hornets. And Tom Telesco needs to make sure that he's doing his due diligence. And I've said this on the YouTube channel that I have, ALLaBorde Raiders. Go check that out after this. And I've said this maybe on this live stream. But Tom Telesco has a very good history of drafting the right guy or being in the room when the right guy was drafted. He was in the draft room with Bill Polian when they drafted Peyton Manning for the Colts and Andrew Luck for the Colts. Then when it was up to him, he drafted Justin Herbert in a draft class with a lot of good quarterbacks and a lot of bad quarterbacks. He tried, the reports are heaven and earth, to trade up for Jaden Daniels. So he's been in the room and he's made it very clear how good he is at evaluating the quarterback. And the reason I'm saying all this is to show you not only, yes, it's important to have a high draft pick, but you got to know which guy you want to take. But the main thing is this. If we don't take the person that everybody wants, Shedeur Sanders, Cam Ward, if he goes Milroe or Aller or Dart or Ewers, you got to let this guy, I hate to say it, cook. Tom Telesco has a proven track record of knowing what he's doing, especially in the first few rounds. And this past draft class that we had was absolutely excellent. We found 2 future linemen and a star tight end. You got to let him do his thing. And as I read the comments here, look at what those organizations had behind the scenes. This is a different this is going to be different with Tom Brady involved. I don't know how the college football playoff will play out, but please either have Shedeur or Cam Ward. as your number 1 and 2. Telesco is a surgeon. I love that Telesco doesn't talk much. He's too busy watching football and scouting. Ward, Milroe, Sanders. I'm not on the Milroe bandwagon, not impressed. And look, I've got my order too. My tentative order right now, as I watch and break down the film on my Patreon, patreon.com/ALLaBorde. Just go check that out. Right now, I've watched highlights and film and read, reports of 3 quarterbacks: Shedeur Sanders, Cam Moore, Drew Aller. I went Drew Aller third because I went to Penn State. I went to school with him. He's a great kid. Right now, my tentative order is that Shedeur Sanders 1, Cam Moore 2, Drew Aller 3, Jalen Milroe 4. That's my 4. I'd be happy to take anyone in that top 4, and if he goes outside of that, I'll be happy as well because, again, you gotta trust him. But my overall reason to talk to you about this history of the draft is to show that the first quarterback taken, more often than not, is not the guy that ends up being the next Tom Brady, right? Tom Brady was a 6th-round selection. I am absolutely telling you we need to take a quarterback with that first selection. No doubt about it. But only time will tell if we need to be in the upper echelon of the top 5. We're going to be in the top 5. Where that will be, I don't know. If we have to trade up with the Patriots, then we will. But what say you? I see other people: Curtis Rourke, Indiana, Dylan Gabriel, Nussmeier from LSU. Yeah, there's a lot of options out there. I've heard conflicting reports on this class in particular that there's a lot of high floor guys, but there's not a lot of high ceiling guys. And to me, Shedeur Sanders, I know there's every rumor in the business is saying that he wants to play for us, and I love that. I want the person that we draft to want to be a Raider. He absolutely has a high floor. I think he can come in and change a lot of the stuff initially, right? I just don't know if he has what it takes to reach that Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes level, which is what everyone's chasing, right? But as I wrap this up here, I hope I educated you a little bit on the idea of tanking and why it doesn't always work. Also, in the NFL, you can't tank. You can't go out there and not try because you'll get your head taken off. It's not like basketball where you can, I'm just going to pass here and shoot here. It doesn't matter, right? However, with all that being said, I am fully aware and I fully admit and acknowledge that it would help us to have the highest pick possible, because if we have the first overall pick, that means Tom Telesco has the ability to take absolutely whoever he wants. He is not confined to having to trade up or to have to wait for other people to fall to him. So, I think that's where I'm going to end it here, boys and girls. If you want to get some comments in at the very end here, I'll read them off. Watched Sunday Night Football last night. Keep thinking about how I can't wait till we have a QB to play like that. No doubt about it. That was great quarterback play. Shedeur is quite literally the only draft hopeful player that wants to play for Las Vegas. Tom Telesco needs to do whatever possible to draft him. And I think if he thinks he's the guy, he will. And that's honestly my whole hypothesis with the Tom Telesco of it all. All right, boys and girls, thank you so much for watching. If you're watching on Bleach Report, thank you so much. If you're watching back on YouTube, make sure to hit that subscribe button. Next week, I believe it's at 2 p.m. We will be recapping the Broncos game, and then the week after that, we got Black Friday, so I'll be on at Saturday, 12 p.m. Eastern, I believe. And then in December, the schedule gets a little bit crazy, so we'll talk to you about that then. Thank you guys so much for watching. I love you guys. I'll see you next time.